Hey, good evening, everyone. It's CJ. Hopefully, everyone is having a fantastic evening or morning, depending upon where you are. Very excited to be doing a live stream. It is Tuesday evening, October the 19th, and I'm here with Alex Hills, who has just been just phenomenal with her work that she's doing with Candles for Assange. I've had Alex on before, previously discussing Julian Assange, and we've been coordinating and getting in touch with her to give us an update. So, Alex, with all that being said, welcome back. Thank you for everything that you're doing to help Julian, all the work that you're doing. So, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on again. It's so hard to get the word out through the algorithm silo. So, good afternoon from New Zealand, everyone.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's
Crazy,
evening
eh?
or afternoon your time and the next day and everything, getting everything coordinated. Want to welcome everyone tuning in on the chat. So thank you for being here this evening or morning. And if you have not done so yet, do me a favor. There's a couple of important Twitter handles that you can follow and stay up to date with all the information related to Julian. The first and the primary page is Candles for Assange, and that's over on Twitter. And there you can see all the events that are being posted around the globe, including here in the United States. And then also with Alex, you can follow her on her Twitter handle, which is under Alex Hills as well. So. Um, Alex, I think it's important for us, and we were having a little bit of chat before we hit the live button. Just everything that's transpired, and I'm just still kind of dumbfounded that we're still in this. That Julian is still in this predicament in regards to potential extraditing to the United States with all the revelations, everything that has came forth in regards to the massive injustice that took place, with him. We see the toll that it's taking on him, not only with his health, but his family. Alice, can you bring us up to speed in regards to things that have happened, and then also, currently where it is in terms of the potential being extradited to the United States? I know that's a lot to chew through, so
Yeah,
take your time, Alex. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I assume your viewers, having watched your show a lot, I'm assuming they're fairly up to date with the general case. But when the hearing started back in February 2020, before COVID, we actually had about 55 cities doing regular weekly and fortnightly protests around that hearing time. We had Amnesty come on board 2 days before the trial, typically. We had a lot of noise being made out there. But what we did hear about Julian was that he had been tortured to the point where he couldn't even remember his own name during that February trial. He was handcuffed and woken up all night and moved from room to room. Later on this year, now we're getting into the appeal hearings and the decision back in January. The most recent one, horrifyingly, many journalists who were there in the virtual sort of courtroom, they didn't even recognize Julian when he came on. They just didn't recognize, he looked too old. And this is why doctors for Assange and lawyers for Assange and I think about 30 press organizations recently have just come out saying he should be released, particularly in light of two recent revelations. One being that their chief star witness, an FBI alleged informant, not only as a pedophile who defrauded, many companies, including WikiLeaks, he'd been done for pretending to be Julian Assange, assaulting young boys, and this was their star witness. Now, this came out in Stendon in Iceland. Very good journalist there has, interviewed him, and he retracted his entire testimony. So, really, the only possible way you could argue anything other than this is a journalist being persecuted was that they were laying on these sort of hacking stories. Now, the hacking came about partly because of this Ziggy false testimony, but also partly because he was trying to protect Chelsea Manning, Bradley Manning
Hmm.
at the time, just by accessing information that she had classified access to, but just simply trying to do it on a different account and password just to keep her identity private. And if protecting sources in this world right now, when it's in the public interest to reveal the information, is a crime, then we're in real trouble. Not only that, we've got all the issues. It's not really just about Julian. Whatever you happen to think about him, this is about a chilling effect on journalism. And we can see that now. I sometimes wonder whether Julian was silenced because of COVID, because of what was about to transpire. Couldn't have a very powerful vocal voice that both sides of the spectrum listened to. It just wouldn't have done, I think.
Absolutely.
And actually, if you hear him speaking in his very last known video interview, I highly recommend fast forwarding even just to the very last question. And then you will see how much Julian knew about what was about to roll out. And I think it's very interesting that people go and check that out on Rutley, his last known video appearance, and go to his last question. I think that will make a lot of sense to people in this current context now where we're at, where if Julian had a voice, I think we'd be in a different place right now.
Yeah, very, very well said, Alex. I mean, to think that the primary witness, the number one person that made the accusations in regards to quote unquote Julian asking him to hack computers, which was an absolute lie, admitted to this and saying, no, I I lied, and it was primarily his testimony that was led to everything that's transpired up to this point. And let's also
and
remember. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, in fact, the original argument that Julian was even slightly a hacker actually came from when he was in Australia as a teenager. He helped the police there, the AFP in Australia, find pedophiles using his hacking. So, yes, he was a very IT literate and fascinated by the idea of being able to create a Dropbox for journalists that was private and encrypted. And I think we can all see he's revolutionized journalism. And the testimony to that is all the awards, international awards that he's been given. So yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add that about the hacking.
Well, absolutely. And then one of the most famous videos that recently Julian appeared was an actually dated video from him when he completely exposed what was happening in Afghanistan. And I don't want to go too far off topic, but it was him exposing what exactly was taking place. The fact that Afghanistan was basically being utilized as a money laundering event,
right.
From the corporations to the government to the military industrial complex to where the money was going and everything. And he exposed all of that, and that's the reason that he became such a large target. And then whenever he formed WikiLeaks and created the Dropbox for for journalism, for whistleblowers to have a vehicle for their information to come forth and do so privately. And not only that, exposing the entire Vault 7 and just so many things that he exposed that have been true. I don't think that anything that WikiLeaks has put out has been redacted or been shown to have
15 years
any
almost now. I believe it's 15 years that they've been publishing, and never been a single retraction. No. And I think, yes, in terms of Pompeo and his assassination investigations into Julian, how they could assassinate him, I think that was as a direct result of Vault 7. At least a lot of commentators believe that.
Well, yes. And so, and I believe even here recently, this article is dated as of October 7th, but the key witness in FBI case against Assange held in custody to stop his crime spree in Iceland. So here's this individual that again is a noted liar, lied in his testimony regarding Assange, and now is basically potentially under criminal indictment for crimes that he still continues to commit in Iceland. I mean, all of these things. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, Alex. You cannot. It's
like a cry for help from him, wasn't it? I mean, I don't know what possessed him to finally own up to this, but I mean, it just seems like a damaged individual, doesn't it? Really damaged.
It does. Yes.
To someone like Julian and cause such horror for your own potential kids or family. It just seems ridiculous.
Yes. And one thing that I do want to share is a video of you in which you delivered a speech, rogue speech, into the I believe it was the British High Commissioner and the government. And I believe this actually was it removed or banned? Something happened with this with this
Yeah.
video.
Wow. Yeah, a
what's
lot
that?
of things happened. Yeah, so we were doing a protest on World Press Freedom Day, and we got wind of this breakfast going on at the New Zealand Parliament in the morning in that very fancy room there. And we sat through a conference about world press freedom, and not a single mention of Julian Assange or WikiLeaks, of course. I mean, the Canadian High Commissioner was actually in the audience sitting next to me, and they didn't know who we were, but my friend was poised with a mobile phone, and it's a bit bad sound, but that's why I put the subtitles on. What you have there is a local MP. You have one of the biggest mainstream media journalists in New Zealand, Tova O'Brien. You have the British High Commissioner cheering it. You've got a guy called Richard Harlan, I think, from Politic with a K website. And then you've got an academic called Andrew Lanley there. And I basically jumped up when I realized they weren't going to ask any questions of the audience, and I just started ranting at them. And I'm afraid I did it very quickly, because I got wind that they were trying to get me off, and it was all being live streamed and everything. So they were trying to get me. So I was trying to get the words out as quick as possible. But unbelievably, the High Commissioner whispered something to Richard Harlan, who then turned around and said, "Oh yes, of course. The Guardian editor Luke Harding has said that he's not a journalist," and nonsense stuff. And it was just a waffle, and then they excused themselves, and I did a bit more retorting, and then they moved on. So they just weren't interested in covering it. But then it got translated in about 3 languages, and philosophers and socialists and WSWS wrote about it. And then years later, when all this censorship was happening, they were taking down all the Trump people. I remember the WS and SEG, the Socialist Equality groups, they were cheering for that. And then the week later, on the 23rd of January, we all got taken down. I think they felt that they wanted to take down the left, and they mistakenly assumed I'm a lefty. And they took me down with World Socialist website. So it was either that, or it was my outspokenness during the current crisis. I don't know which one it was.
Well, Alice, let's play this so that our audience understand exactly your actions, and hats off to you for doing this. All kinds of courage displayed. So let's play this.
Uh-oh, no sound.
Did you say there's no audio coming through on it?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay, maybe I didn't do this right. Give me 1 second. Sometimes whenever I'm live streaming solo, it's a little bit more challenging to do this. So let me do this here. Bring that back in, and I very well may have forgot to click on share audio. Okay, let's play this from the beginning. Here we go. Sorry about that. It just takes a minute for that.
We focused on lies in the social media, but not those in NSN. I want to point out the brazen hypocrisy of World Press Freedom Day being hosted by the UK government at this dark time. Julian Assange is being persecuted by war criminals, and the corrupt that he exposed are still sitting in positions of power in the government on both sides of the aisle, as well as in much of the media. Imagine the precedent Trump is setting, that any country could extradite any foreign journalist or publisher and make them subject to draconian laws, possibly the death penalty, just because they publish truth about the government's war crimes. Imagine if that state was Saudi Arabia. We call on the world media to stand by their award-winning colleague and Nobel Peace Prize nominee. End the smears and lies about an anti-war hero. You want to know how to get people trusting media more? Tell the truth. Stop delivering a one-sided, government-sanctioned narrative. That is what is going on here. Thank you.
Being held for accountable to justice, and it's not, I would say, a medium reader issue.
Publisher.
Well, the Guardian has done quite a lot on this question whether he's a journalist or not, and has concluded that he's not.
And their story on Manafort was a disgrace.
We're not really having that's fine.
Well, what about free speech? We were just talking about that.
We are talking about it. This is also a panel discussion. Any further comments? Wonderful. Commissioner Handel.
Not a mention of Julian Assange.
What a shame. What an absolute
Yeah.
shame.
But what was rather pleasing was it got really picked up on Twitter as well. You know, hundreds of thousands of impressions, and then Christian Hafrenson retweeted and ripped the British High Commissioner's a new one, frankly. It was great to see. So there was a lot of publicity about that, and it really, I think it did Luke Harding some damage with any luck.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation and other revelations that came forth was in regards to and this was probably by far the most I guess you could say in terms of attack on free speech, attack on the ideas of the even the Constitution here in the United States and what happens, and that's the fact that it became known that there was an actual plot that came forth by the intelligence operations, the CIA, to either to kidnap or flat out just assassinate Julian while he was in the embassy as having basically political asylum during that time period. But yet the United States was willing to violate all type of international laws to do this. Very just crazy, Alex, that this was going to happen.
And even before all this happened, we had all the spying, and as is being heard in a Spanish court about UC Global constantly spying, even on his toilet, to the point where I think his partner and him set up a tent in the embassy on the floor for some privacy, because everywhere was bugged. And I think you might remember Cassandra Fairbanks went there. I did a video on my channel, Alex Hill's channel. Cassandra Fairbanks also wanted to warn him, and they were trying to talk. And they had to sort of put the white noise on and pass notes to each other and all that sort of stuff just to get the message across. So his legal privilege, we already know he had no legal privilege, no allowance to meet with his lawyers. I mean, complete isolation, torture, persecution. I mean, it doesn't get better than this. And they call out Russia and China for their terrible, Saudi Arabia for their terrible practices. But look, it's the same, isn't it?
It is the same, and I think in the event where we currently are, where people there's such a large distrust in quote unquote the media, it's because for the most part the attack on Julian is attack on the entire sector of journalists and investigative journalists who are exposing a lot of the things that's taken place, and from there it's just escalated. There's been no recourse in terms of what's happening in the mainstream media, and that's why the efforts to help Julian is just so important, because this speaks volumes as to more than just an individual. It impacts all of us in terms of freedom of speech, in terms of journalism, who historically have been really safeguarded as far as any type of prosecution, and now to witness how this has been elevated so much to the point now where there is a risk that in the event that Julian is extradited, it's basically a death sentence. In the event that Julian is extradited to the United States, it's basically a death sentence for him. The way I look at it, and many others as well, Alex.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really does seem like a bit of a globalist desire to start, applying law across the world, to anyone you want. And that is also the other scary part. There are so many scary parts. I mean, what's lovely is the change of attitude. I mean, when I first did this in 2018, you get the odd feminist spit at you, or an elderly guy get upset about classified information and state secrets. You get the occasional hate, really, and not many people would know about Julian. And then we were recently doing a billboard over the motorway, and we had practically every 5 cars. It was a holiday time, so there weren't many cars on the road, and they were tending to be sort of holiday traffic. But we got so many beeps. We got every 5-6 cars there was something, either a wave or something. It was amazing. And so I'm really noticing that is changing. If people still feel badly about him, they're certainly not saying it publicly anymore, which is lovely to see. And also all these wonderful world events. We got set back with the COVID thing. We were doing so well. Team Assange was sort of listing. That's not anyone, by the way. No one's taken ownership of Team Assange. That's just expressing all the groups out there that are working so hard. But a lot of the supporters suffer from being very isolated, not only by the algorithm, but there seems to be a direct attempt to try and not get your information to local people. So I'm not very good at getting people to Wellington to a protest. You know, I can get to 20, 30 maybe. It's not my forte. But yeah, it feels like there's a sort of generalized kind of disinformation, people co-opting. There's all sorts of stuff going on in every city. And it's that's what makes it very challenging to get beyond the sort of handfuls of people that we're seeing.
Yes, and indeed. And if you don't mind, Alex, if you could bring us up to speed in terms of the next key dates and in terms of the courts there in the UK, what are those dates? And then also what I can do, I can also share screen a little bit as well in terms of some of the events that it will be taking place around the globe as well. So could you bring us up to speed on that?
Last time I counted, I think it was about 60 events around the world in as many as 39 cities, 14 countries. We are sort of doing a series of events over the whole week because a lot of people are already doing weekly protests, so we're sort of fitting them all in. Starting on the Friday, Sydney and Melbourne. The main protest, I think, because people are around on the weekend, is the 23rd on the Saturday. And then that's literally in, I don't know, probably about 20 cities already on that day. Then on the 24th, unfortunately, I don't know if you've heard, but Netflix are airing a documentary, Smear, an old one, which will say that he's a Russian agent and that he's a rapist and all this nonsense. They are intending to air that at midnight, well, Sunday, so I guess late on Saturday. And that's at Pacific time, midnight, which means that New York is 3 in the morning, London is 7 a.m., Europe is 8 a.m., I'm 8 p.m. And yeah, so what we were hoping to do was go outside. This is an idea by Rose McGowan, actually, who was live streaming with us the other day. This was her idea, is to live real-time debunk the smear outside their headquarters in every single country that we can. I think we've got Mexico, we might have Paris, we have Los Gatos, which is the main headquarters. Then there's Los Angeles, London, Berlin, Amsterdam, Paris. Sydney has an office, but I haven't found it yet. And then I found the little local office here in Wellington. So we're going to try and hit that during the live broadcast. Or worst case scenario, we'll do an online broadcast with all those countries and the people, and we'll do some other action that's at a better time, because obviously midnight is not a great time to protest all around the world, unfortunately. But
yes,
yeah, that's the aim, is to highlight that. Then the actual hearing itself is actually on the Wednesday and Thursday. So we've got protests leading all the way through the week, but majority on the Wednesday and the Thursday. A lot of cities are doing both the Saturday and the Wednesday, or the Wednesday and Thursday. So there's an awful lot of wonderful actions going on. And some of them are online, some of them are events, some of them are comedy, some of them are going to be theatrical, some of them are going to be musical.
Yes.
So there's a whole array of different solutions to try and get the word out. I can go through the city list. I have a Facebook group, which is about 3,000 people, called Candles for Assange. If anyone's still on that dinosaur platform, please go and check it out.
Yeah, get out
I
now.
got banned from this. I'm over it. I'm back to sort of a few hundred followers again. So yeah, there's a Facebook group with all of it listed and all the graphics. There's also the Twitter pin thread. And my own channel's Alex Hills, and I often do information about that. So yeah,
I was going to ask you, Alex, I was going to ask you as well, the conversation with Rose McGowan, is that posted somewhere? Action
for Assange, who are the main American group. I think there's Assange Defense and them. They did this wonderful live stream on Saturday, and I had to step out of an activist funeral to come and do the interview, but I wasn't going to turn it down. So
right.
Yeah, we spoke to her and we literally brainstormed ideas about censorship, because obviously she's been the topic of a lot of direct censorship, persecution. She's lost her credit cards, her website, her house has been turned upside down, her computer accessed. She was run off the road. So like, she's really interested in combating censorship right now, and she's wonderful, because I guess it's someone who would be typically on the left, or what would you say? I don't know. You'd say they were her darling but now, you know, she's not saying the right things, and so, you know, we're all getting done for our groupthink.
Absolutely, yes, and
Mm.
that's something, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it's just so important to understand that this really transcends all of politics, and it's just such a shame where you see basically where Biden's policy or Trump's policy in regards to Julian became Biden's policy. In other words, nothing
Yeah.
has changed. Nothing has
No.
changed at all in terms of their efforts, and we know about the alphabet agencies and how they influence and how they control a lot of the determination. So basically, the DOJ has not changed at all. You know, some people were thinking, oh well, maybe Biden's administration will be a little bit different in terms of how they're handling Assange and everything, but it's no different at all. So that whole illusion of the left right paradigm and
Mm.
breaking that down, and it's good to see someone like Rose come across and say, hey, look, I in terms of the cancel culture, in terms of the deplatforming, the demonetizing, everything that's taken place, it's happening and it's
Mm.
real. And now there's
Mm.
even a greater risk in terms of what's happening with the freedom of press, the freedom of speech, things that are taking place. In fact, I do want to share, because I think this is important as well in terms of your work, and it's taken note, because now there's actually a massive coalition that's coming together, and they've drafted a letter. And these aren't lightweights. These are some heavy handed people coming in: the ACLU, Amnesty International,
Mm.
Human Rights, not the Committee to Protect Journalists, all have came forth. Over 25 groups, and just have really stated that, hey, it's time to end this prosecution of Julian Assange. They're basically demanding that this takes place. All of this happening is because of efforts like yours that you're doing, Alex. So again, I just can't thank you enough for your efforts, and I know that there's even a larger group that takes place. So I want to thank all of them as well for this efforts, because it impacts all of us. It truly does. So, Alex, what other things would you like to share with our listeners? How else can they become involved? What else should people be doing right now to
Mm.
really help keep the momentum going in terms of free Assange?
Well, I think getting together in little groups and actually not attacking, but phoning up, Merrick Garland, or if you're in Australia, Maurice Payne, the foreign minister. I think, actually we gather in a group and we do it almost in a time schedule kind of way. That could be a really good way of really battering our words down, but also being on the street is so much more meaningful if you can do it, or an online protest where we can share it out. It's so much more meaningful when you're actually getting to talk to new people. That's where we're making a real, I think, a bit of a change here in the whole sort of environment around it all. We're becoming more socially acceptable, whereas before we were considered complete conspiracy nuts. And so yeah, I think those two things, running an information stall, ringing up local people, whether you're in Britain, Australia, America, even your local MP. Here in Australia, I've managed to get myself banned from Parliament. I'm not allowed to touch the British High Commission after getting a formal warning which is illegal actually. They shouldn't do it because there's no due process. But I got a formal warning for vandalism, and my MP gave me a trespass order threat from my local office. So I'm about as unrepresented as you can get, but hopefully before you burn those bridges, go and talk to those people.
Yeah, wear all those
Make
with badges. That's a badge of honor for you to have all
them
that,
yes. I'm sure there's more I forgot to talk about. There was one time we were at a protest and we were literally not allowed by the New Zealand Parliament to collect email addresses from other protesters there. It was insane. I recorded the whole thing, and that's where I got banned. I don't think it was the speech. I think it was the subsequent asking questions about something that was unlawful. But yeah, so I'm beginning to be a little bit known as a pain in the butt here. But before you do that, be nice to people. Try, I'm a bit of an agitator when it comes to that, but I'm probably good at riling up the protesters, but not so good at diplomatically dealing with people who just can't get their head out of MSM. So yeah, be polite and look into the foreign offices, your own White House, the Foreign Office in England. You've got Patel there. You've got a lot of compromises as well in the judges in the, there's all sorts of issues there about military funding, weapons deals, and people that have been exposed directly by WikiLeaks who are trying his case. So, and then we've got this, like I said, this Netflix smear, which I think if people could ring up Netflix, tweet them out, use the boycott Netflix and tell them what's going on and why you're upset. And if you can join up with a local action, if you know people in those cities, there is 36 cities, please share it to them directly, message it to them. We're not getting through the algorithm. We're just preaching to the converted, which is why our team stay we're just meeting people on the street. So it would be really helpful if people could put their thinking caps on and try and get people to network with the other groups there. Because I think
absolutely.
The thing is about this topic is it applies to whether you're caring about election reform or if you care about war or all the money being wasted or, just corruption. It really is the overarching topic that we should all be uniting on. There's not many people can disagree that free press is necessary for democracy.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, it definitely is. So again, just want to remind our listeners, make sure you jump over again. There's, not only just on Alex's personal page on Twitter, but also the candles for Assange and stay up to date. Even just sharing the information, even though if you can't personally attend, but sharing the information is on Twitter, also on the Facebook group. Share the information and let's get the word out, because as Alex perfectly articulated, this is a lot more than just Julian. This is about freedom of the press, is a lot about journalism, which in the era that we are currently in, where we have to basically question everything, truth is a very powerful weapon. And when Julian was able to share the truth and share the information is when he became such a huge target to the intelligence agencies. And that's why they want to continue with this prosecution of him. And in the error and the deception of lies where we are, truth is just so important. And Julian was a breath of fresh air. And let's not also forget that he is a father. He is a husband. He does have a family. So we need to do the right thing to do everything we can to help Julian.
Yeah, I mean, the stories that have come from Stella, his partner, and the mother of 2 children, like, stealing nappies, trying to get DNA, assassination, people breaking into the embassy. It's just incredible, isn't it?
It is.
And
it is.
seeing them talk to their dad, there's one video out there where you can see Julian talking to his kids on the phone, and it's heartbreaking. He's being a lovely dad, but all he's got is the voice. And at that point, I think the younger son hadn't even met him, or because, Belmarsh and the lockdowns and it just suddenly not safe to bring him in when they didn't know. And I might point out the only reason they found out about Stella is because the court made her make her name public, which they didn't want to happen.
Right.
So they kept it quiet. And a lot of this is what's going to be discussed at the US appeal hearing trial between 27th and 28th. The horror is that the US were not allowed to argue on mental health grounds. Now they're going to say, oh, well, we didn't know about Stella and the kids, so he must have been actually quite happy because he's got kids. It's awful to think that they're going to drag out all those medical and horrible testimonies again and draw it all out again. And also his poor partner, I mean, hasn't she suffered enough? Like, both of them, it begs belief. But yeah, I mean, Candle started out as a birthday event for Julian. It just took off, and then I became this like listing person. But also one of the reasons that we did it was because music and candles and theatre, comedy, it makes a certain amount of innocence, then it makes it very difficult to co-opt. It's very difficult. A lot of these protests, you got the people with their hearts in the right place in BLM and probably even Antifa, but they're being corralled by these forces. So anything that can make you innocent. I play violin, a few candles laid out. It makes it very hard for them to arrest you or to co-opt your group because you're just above it all and non-partisan. Right. Yeah, so that would be my other recommendation, is by using art and music to cut through. And me and my friend Timothy in New Zealand, we're starting a new news music channel called Good Bad Music
Love
News.
it. Love
So
it.
we're just going to sing, and one day we're going to set it up so we can do anyone's words as lyrics and do live songs that we make up on the spot for other people who want to get their words
Nice.
out musically. So I'm just building up a little archive there on my YouTube channel. So I've got Alex Hills in Good Bad Music News. So
Awesome.
yeah, check it
I
out.
will definitely check that out. And again, you know, saying this not only for myself, but also our listeners, Alex, want to thank you for everything that you're doing. You're doing tremendous, great work. So thank you for that. And we can just, you know, just stay strong and support Julian and stay optimistic in regards to his future. So I want to thank you for a great interview. And I'm confident that we'll do this again real soon.
Great. Thank you so much. It was great
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, Alex.